You are sitting in a room with nothing to do. No phone, no screen, no sound. Your mind starts to itch. Within minutes, you feel the urge to reach for something, anything, to make the itch stop. This feeling has a name. Psychologists call it boredom, and you probably assume it is a modern curse, a side effect of a world that moves too fast. But your ancestors knew this exact feeling too. For roughly 300,000 years, humans have carried brains built to hate empty time. The question is not whether ancient humans got bored. The question is what they did about it. Start with the biology. Boredom is not laziness. It is a signal, the same way hunger or thirst is a signal. Psychologist John Eastwood, who has spent years studying this exact emotion, describes boredom as the uncomfortable feeling of wanting to be engaged in a satisfying activity, but being unable to do so. Your brain evolved to treat unused time as a kind of danger. An idle mind in the wild was a mind not scanning for threats, not learning, not improving its odds. So, evolution wired in restlessness. It made stillness uncomfortable on purpose. Now picture your ancestor 40,000 years ago. The hunt is over, the fire is built, the meat is cooking slowly, and there is nothing urgent left to do until morning. No task list, no notifications, just hours of open time stretching in front of them. This was not rare. Anthropologist Richard Lee spent time in the 1960s studying the Jew/Huansi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last living hunter-gatherer societies at the time. He tracked their daily activities hour by hour, and what he found surprised almost everyone who read it. Adults spent an average of only around 15 to 20 hours a week on subsistence work, meaning hunting, gathering, and food preparation combined. The rest of their waking hours were unstructured. Not idle in the sense of doing nothing, but free from the grinding scheduled labor most people assume defined prehistoric life. That leaves a lot of hours to fill. So what did they do with them? They talked. Anthropologist Polly Wiessner, who studied the same Yu Huansi decades later, recorded something striking about how they spent their evenings. During the day, conversation was mostly practical, arguments over resources, complaints, coordination. But at night, once the sun went down and people gathered around the fire, the entire tone shifted. Wiessner found that nighttime conversation was dominated by storytelling, roughly 80% of it, compared to only a small fraction during daylight hours. Firelight seemed to unlock a different mode of talking. Stories about distant relatives, myths, jokes, gossip about who did what to whom. This was not idle chatter. It was social glue, a way of transmitting knowledge, reinforcing relationships, and yes, killing time in a way that felt meaningful instead of empty. They also made things. Long before agriculture, before cities, before writing, humans were already decorating their world for no practical reason at all. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists uncovered engraved pieces of ochre dating back roughly 73,000 years, deliberate cross-hatched patterns scratched into stone with no clear survival function. Whoever made those marks was not hunting, not building shelter, not doing anything you could call essential. They were filling time with something creative. At Chauvet Cave in France, painters roughly 36,000 years ago crawled deep into darkness by torchlight to paint horses, lions, and rhinoceroses on cave walls no one was required to see. These were not chores. These were choices, made in whatever hours were left over once the necessary work was done. Here is where the story gets a little strange. You might assume that more free time meant a happier, calmer existence. And in some ways, it did. But anthropologists studying the Jew/Huansi and similar groups also noted something counterintuitive. Boredom itself, that same itchy, restless feeling you get scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., appears to have existed in these societies too. James Suzman, an anthropologist who lived among and studied the Jew Huansi for decades, wrote about how despite an abundance of leisure time, people still complained of tedium, still sought novelty, still got irritable when days felt repetitive. Free time did not erase the itch. It just changed what people reached for to scratch it. Instead of a screen, they reached for a story. Instead of a notification, they reached for a person sitting across the fire. So let's reconstruct a full evening. The sun drops behind the hills, work is done, or at least done enough. Someone starts a fire not just for warmth, but because firelight itself seems to be a trigger, almost a social switch that flips a group from task mode into story mode. Children who spent the day mimicking adults, practicing digging or throwing, now sit and listen instead. An elder starts talking, maybe about a hunt that went wrong 20 years ago, maybe about a trickster spirit, maybe just gossip dressed up as legend. Someone else interrupts with a joke. Laughter breaks out. Someone hums, and it becomes a rhythm, and the rhythm becomes something close to music. No one is checking the time because there is no clock to check. The boredom that might have crept in during a silent afternoon dissolves the moment the group becomes an audience and a stage at the same time. Here is the twist. The very thing that made ancient life bearable during long stretches of unstructured time was not entertainment in the way you think of it now. It was other people. Boredom, in a hunter-gatherer band, was almost impossible to experience completely alone, because you were rarely completely alone. Groups typically numbered between 25 and 50 people, all sharing the same fire smoke, the same food, the same problems. When your mind got restless, there was almost always someone nearby to talk to, tease, or team up with. Modern boredom feels sharper, more isolating, precisely because so much of it now happens in solitude, staring at a device that simulates connection without actually providing it. Which brings the mirror back to you. Right now, when your mind starts to itch, when that restless feeling creeps in during a quiet afternoon or a slow commute, your first move is probably a screen, a short video, a feed that refreshes, and it works for a few seconds at a time the same way flipping through Firelight stories worked for someone 40,000 years ago. But there is a difference, and it is worth sitting with. The ancient version of boredom relief was almost never passive. It required another voice, another face, a shared moment that could be interrupted, argued with, laughed at. Scrolling is a one-way street. Storytelling around a fire was a conversation. This does not mean you need to abandon your phone and start carving ochre. It means the itch you feel is not new, and it is not broken. It is exactly the same restlessness that pushed a hand across a cave wall in Chauvet 36,000 years ago. The same itch that turned an ordinary evening into 80% storytelling around a Kalahari fire. Your brain still wants what it always wanted. Not distraction, connection. Something made, something shared, something that could not have happened without another person sitting close enough to hear you. You are sitting in a room with nothing to do. No phone, no screen, no sound. But you are not actually the first person to feel this exact discomfort, and you will not be the last. For 300,000 years, this itch has been quietly steering human behavior toward fire circles, cave walls, and stories passed from one mouth to another. The tools have changed. The itch never has.